Good morning. I am Kenyon McDuffie, at-large council member and chair of the Council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. Today is Thursday, January 11th, 2024, and we're convening this roundtable in person and via Zoom. The time is 10:18 a.m., and I'm calling this public roundtable to order. Today, the committee will receive testimony on a single measure, proposed resolution 25-520, the People's Council Sandra Matavu Fry, confirmation resolution of 2023. As a reminder, public witnesses will have 3 minutes to provide testimony, and the nominee testifying on our own behalf will have 5 minutes to provide testimony. All witnesses should remember, if you're virtual, to mute your microphones when not speaking. Proposed resolution 25-520 was introduced on November 1st, 2023 by Chairman Mendelson at the request of the mayor and referred to the committee on November 7th, 2023. This proposed resolution will confirm the reappointment of Sandra Matavu Fry as People's Counsel for a term to end on June 13th, 2027. Ms. Matavu Fry's current term expired in June 2023, and she has been serving in a holdover capacity since that time. In December, the council passed emergency legislation extending the holdover period beyond the statutory 180 days, which was due to expire December 10th, to ensure that there was no vacancy in this position while the committee and the council took up this nomination resolution. The Office of People's Counsel, or OPC, is an independent agency of the District of Columbia that is charged to be the advocate for consumers of utility services in the District of Columbia. Ms. Matavu Fry has served as People's Counsel since 2011. Since she's a graduate of Howard University and Antioch School of Law, she's a member of the DC and Maryland bars. She joined the Office of People's Counsel as a senior attorney and progressively advanced as a supervisor, director of litigation, and deputy People's Counsel before her initial appointment as People's Counsel. She is also a Ward 5 resident. We have one public witness who signed up virtually. And so we're going to turn to that witness who is no stranger to the committee, Mr. Robert Vincent Branham. Good morning to you. It's good to have you appear before the committee this morning. You can begin your testimony. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Give me a couple of minutes to clean up my camera. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Greetings and salutations, Chairman McDuffie and members of the committee. I am Robert Benson Branham. I have held several community-based leadership roles as president, chairman, and board member across the District of Columbia. I am a former ANC commissioner, president emeritus of the DC Federation of Civic Associations, former president of the Bloomingdale Civic Association, and chair of the Public Safety Committee of the Ward 5 Leadership Council. I'm also a board member of the DC Open Government Coalition, and I am third vice president of the NAACP DC branch. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I am pleased, enthused, and in high support of PR 250520, the People's Council Sandra Matavu Fry confirmation resolution of 2023. I have known and worked with Ms. Fry for a number of years on various Public Service Commission issues. There has not been a time or an instance which has caused me to question her word or to doubt her commitment to the people of the District of Columbia. Moreover, Ms. Matavu Fry has been an excellent advocate for the commission and dedicated to the principle of community service and response. I strongly support this nomination, and I urge the committee and the council to confirm. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony this morning, Mr. Branham. We'll make sure we incorporate that as part of our record. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
There are no additional public witnesses, and so now we're going to turn to the nominee, Sandra Matavu Fry. And if you could stand first and raise your right hand so I could swear you in. Do you swear or affirm on the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Committee on Business and Economic Development and the Council of the District of Columbia is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. And good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. You can begin with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman McDuffie. I am pleased to be here. For the record, I am Sandra Matavu Fry, and I'm serving as the People's Counsel. I am honored that the mayor has submitted my name for the council's consideration to serve as People's Counsel for another term. I am committed to ensuring that my stewardship of the agency remains at the highest possible level. The district's utility industry evolution has accelerated rapidly. The need to confront the new 21st century realities is more critical today than it was 48 years ago when Congress determined that DC utility consumers needed an independent public advocate to represent and protect and to help shape the future world of utilities. We are confronting the emergence of new players, new utility business models, technological advances, and the expansion of large multi-jurisdictional utilities such as Exelon and AltaGas. However, these new world developments must not steer us off course as we strive to achieve the district's goals for climate change solutions and environmental justice. The fundamental entitlements to safe, reliable, and affordable utility service are absolute. A central aspect of my leadership has been proposing innovative and creative resolutions to modern utility challenges and achieving tangible and measurable victories for consumers. OPC's accomplishments throughout its history reflect a consistent and exemplary pattern of wins for consumers. I would like to highlight just a few of what I considered notable victories during my leadership. An important, really key part of OPC's mission is to protect consumers from unreasonable utility rates. During my tenure, DC consumers saved $324 million due to our trial advocacy in rate cases before the Public Service Commission. Empirical data demonstrates that utility bill savings lessen the financial energy burden facing consumers, particularly low and medium income consumers, many of whom have not financially recovered from the pandemic. Data also show that the energy burden disparity between low-income consumers and higher-income consumers is widening. Turning to the pandemic itself, in advance of the COVID-19 pandemic government shutdown, I wrote to the utilities requesting they refrain from disconnecting consumers who had fallen behind in their bills. OPC also helped draft legislation on COVID-19 emergency relief bills. OPC's proactive work was instrumental in helping the district become one of the first jurisdictions in the nation to impose utility moratoriums during the pandemic. I am personally convinced that we saved lives and kept families together as a result. Community Renewable Energy Facilities, or CREF, better known as Community Solar, allows consumers, including low and moderate income consumers, to benefit from renewable energy options. We received complaints that PEPCO was not following the rules. We petitioned the PSC to formally investigate PEPCO's CREF practices. Specifically, our petition addressed consumer complaints about PEPCO's issuance of inaccurate community solar bill credits and its compliance with rules for the use of its meters. OPC's CREF petition resulted in a tangible victory for consumers and advanced the district's climate change goals related to the RPS solar targets, including a soon to be determined by the commission reimbursement to CREF customers. Another major issue that is being discussed in DC is the Washington Gas Light accelerated pipeline replacement. Major components of WGL's infrastructure are aging. The replacement of that infrastructure is projected to cost over $1 billion. OPC continues to monitor performance to ensure that the company is delivering tangible benefits at affordable prices to consumers and providing safe service. In June of 2023, OPC requested the commission pause project pipes to ensure WGL is using the most effective methods to identify and repair leaks and to ensure that the project fits within the commission's overall plan for decarbonization. As I've said frequently, and as a professor said to me once, good work gets more work. OPC's history of consumer empowerment and consumer service led the council to expand OPC's authority to represent the interests of DC water consumers in 2018. To date, our water division has addressed 3,025 water service consumer complaints. We also successfully negotiated changes to the rules governing consumers' rights to dispute billing irregularities, including increasing the time to file a complaint from 10 days to 20 days. We also recently filed an appeal before the DC Court of Appeals, challenging DC Water's attempt to constrict OPC's ability to adequately represent water consumers, consistent with what we believe is the council's legislative intent when it enacted the new law. And I would mention that our lawyer is at the Court of Appeals today, as we speak, arguing our case. We envision that we will be successful. The climate action section. In 2019, I established OPC's climate action section. This section helps facilitate our ability to effectively advocate for equitable, consumer-centric climate action policies and submit testimony and policy recommendations on vital climate legislation proposed by the council. The new section is staffed by a climate attorney who is assisted by our senior economist, a certified climate specialist. It also works with our existing energy efficiency, environment, and sustainability section I established in 2011. We are often cited for our community outreach, and I passionately believe that outreach, education, and communications with consumers must be two-way. OPC reports to the consumers, but we also listen. For example, the climate section organized 2 historic Climate Conversation Summit events. Our youth seminar, the second in the series, was the first major event of its kind launched in the district, geared to the next generation of climate leaders, Gen Z. I heard there's a new one. We also recently won an appeal of the PSC's approval of PEPCO's attempt to recover revenue associated with its Benning Road power plant cleanup costs. OPC believed that costs should not be charged to ratepayers. Our advocacy saved consumers $1.9 million for remediation of the hazardous waste left at the plant. I guess one of the most important issues or things that I'm talking about today is what is my vision for the future? If I am reappointed, how will I lead the office? Well, we face climate change realities and other developments in the utility regulatory process. That is clear. Under my leadership, OPC will aggressively defend consumer rights, develop new strategies, ensure equitable treatment, and build new alliances. Specifically, OPC will engage DC youth in climate change conversations and facilitate their input in shaping the coming epic changes they will encounter. 2, we will confront the challenge of a rise in competitive markets, including the emergence of third-party suppliers. 3, champion and support the district's environmental and sustainable energy policies and ambitious clean air goals. 4, continue to urge the PSC to direct the utilities to develop a clear decarbonization pathway that coordinates the paths of both the electric and natural gas utilities to maximize carbon reduction and to equitably balance consumer interests. 5, ensure equity in the electrification of the transportation sector by promoting electrification of mass transit before personal vehicles so that low-income residents who rely on mass transit will benefit directly from the transportation electrification. We will also design and develop energy efficiency programs for renters in master metered buildings. 6, develop effective rate designs that ease the burden placed on those consumers who remain on regulated service. And 7, continue to make policy recommendations on vital climate policy legislation. The legacy of the past, I believe, will provide a gateway to the future and a new prism and a fresh vision to guide us through the uncertainty of what lies ahead. For the record, I have included attachments to my testimony that provide a greater detail on the accomplishments of the office during the last 11 years. I have also attached over a dozen letters of support from consumers, lay advocates, the environmental community, and unions in support of my renomination. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you today. I thank the council for allowing me to serve DC consumers, and I'm available for any questions that you might have.
And thank you for your testimony this morning. I do have some questions, not a lot of questions though. This isn't the first time we've had you appear before the committee as a nominee, so we're very familiar with who you are, your service in this role, and obviously the mayor's confidence in renominating you to this position. But I'm going to start out with some of the standard questions that we ask of all nominees.
Okay.
Are you a district resident? And if confirmed, do you intend to reside in the district for the entirety of your appointment?
I do.
Have you been or are you a member of any district government board or commission?
I am a member, a statutory member of the SEU-AB, which is the SEU Secured Energy Utility Advisory Board.
Okay, yeah, the Sustainable Energy
Sustainable.
Advisory Board. Yeah, I get confused by all the acronyms myself. Do you have any pecuniary interest, voluntary or indirectly, in any public utility in the District of Columbia?
I do not.
Do you or does any member of your immediate family have any interest, financial or otherwise, that may directly or indirectly pose a conflict of interest for you in the performance of your duties?
No.
Do you have any outstanding liability for taxes, fees, or other payments to the district, federal, state, or other local government, either contested or uncontested?
I do not.
Are you an attorney? And if so, are you a member of any state bar? And are you in good standing?
Yes, I am in good standing in two bars. I'm in good standing before the U.S. Supreme Court Bar, the D.C. Court of Appeals, the District of Columbia Bar, and the Maryland Bar.
Okay, and licensed to practice both Maryland and District of Columbia. Have you ever been investigated, disciplined, or cited for a breach of ethics for unprofessional conduct by or been the subject of a complaint to any court, administrative agency, professional association, disciplinary committee, or other professional group?
The answer to that question is yes. Approximately, I guess it was 5 years ago, a complainant, an employee, a former employee filed a claim against me for, with Bega for, she asserted that it was, I asked her to do things that were not strictly within her job description. We negotiated a settlement. There was, as you know, back and forth negotiations, and Bega found that there was a violation. They did acknowledge that there was no personal gain on my part and that the matter had been settled without further ado.
What year was that?
Excuse me?
The settlement, when was the settlement?
The settlement was in 2019, I believe,
Okay. And
but
so
I can get the exact dates.
the matter's been resolved to,
The matter has been resolved and the person has not filed any additional claim against me or the agency
okay,
since that time.
okay, and you're still admitted to practice before the DC Court of Appeals, as you just mentioned?
I'm sorry.
You're still admitted to practice before the DC Court of Appeals, as you just mentioned, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the duties of the People's Counsel are described in the code, the DC Code, as, and I'm quoting here, shall represent and appeal for the people of the District of Columbia at hearings of the Commission and in judicial proceedings in the District of Columbia courts when these proceedings and hearings involve the interests of users of the products or the services furnished by public utilities under the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission. Talk a little bit about how you've achieved this in your previous term, how you plan to continue to do so, and successes you found in representing the residents and consumers of the District of Columbia as the People's Counsel.
Yes, we have, and I'm not certain how you'd like me to focus my response. I have, in terms of the number of cases, we have tried several cases before the DC Court of Appeals, as I mentioned today, and we have been successful in several of them, one being the Benning Road negotiation. It was a Benning Road settlement. PEPCO at the time agreed that it would not seek remediation, they would not seek recovery of the remediation costs of the waste that were left in the Benning Road plant when they removed it. And they then filed for recovery in the last rate case, and the commission initially granted it, and we appealed it on two grounds. One, because there's no basis for recovering from ratepayers a hazard, the use of hazardous cost removal. But more importantly, they had actually signed an agreement with PEPCO, with the government, that they would not seek recovery of those expenses. The DC Court of Appeals agreed with us. So that was one example. We have been extremely successful, as you know, before the Public Service Commission in garnering recovery of, what we've considered unaffordable rates for consumers. And even in the two major mergers that we have, although we were not able to prevent the actual mergers after as you know, we won initially, and then there was a second phase where we did not. But we were able to, through those, and that's, I guess, the benefit of negotiation, we were able to garner numerous savings and benefits for consumers, including the academy, the Workforce Academy, which is now, one of the premier education and training in the city, and something that is a model across the country. But that was one of OPC's settlement negotiations that we were able to achieve from PEPCO. And we also got a moratorium, et cetera. But the one that I think is significant because it's long-standing and it really goes to the bottom line of making certain that, our youth in particular are trained and have, jobs that are sustainable.
Yeah. Speaking of sustainability, one of the duties assigned to this role is described as in defining its positions while advocating on matters pertaining to the operation of public utility or energy companies. The office shall consider the public safety, the economy of the District of Columbia, the conservation of natural resources, and the preservation of environmental quality, including effects on global climate change and the district's public climate commitments.
Mhm.
Talk about a little, if you will, briefly, how you've taken on this responsibility in your role.
I'd be pleased to do that. As I mentioned in my testimony, I created in 2019 a climate action section, and that is designed to address the growing climate action and environmental issues that we are confronting in the district, and to ensure that we meet the goals that the council and the mayor have established. We testify before the council on those bills, but we also are involved in outreach and communications. As I mentioned, we did the conferences with youth, and that was the first time. And I think that is personally important because we know they are the future leaders and they need to know and be involved in shaping, exactly what is going to happen. And if they don't own it, they're never going to be able to do it. And we also had, that was the second in the series, but the first was a conversation, because what we found was that people don't know what we're talking about when we say electrification and decarbonization and things of that nature. So we wanted to break it down so that everybody will know, what we're talking about and why it's important that they participate. And that's in terms of my, what I would like to do in the future is to really do a massive campaign, consumer campaign, to educate consumers about, the changes that are coming and why they should participate. And more importantly, listen to them and let them help us define what the needs are and what's acceptable and what they can live with. I know we all hear, our aunts and our mothers and grandmothers, well, I'm not giving up my gas stove. I don't know what you're talking about, electrification. But we need to, make certain that they understand the consequences of change and how they can partake and still have the benefits. The one thing that I will say is that the change is not going to happen overnight, and it is going to be a transition. And we have to make certain that we maximize the transition period to get as much as we possibly can out of it.
I was asking my staff here, the section is the climate action section. Is that the name of the section?
Yes.
About how many FTEs are in that section?
There is one climate attorney.
Okay.
And there are 2 technical associates or technical people that help. They are not specifically assigned to that unit, but they help. And that is the senior economist, who is a certified climate professional, okay, and also the engineer.
Got it.
So they and we also, because we use the synergies of our other on-staff attorneys to help, because we do have attorneys that have expertise in that area, some of them that we were fortunate enough to hire recently, and they're also doing other things. They're also doing energy related things, but they can have input on what's going on in the climate action section.
Okay. You've been in the position for some time now, and within the office, frankly, for some time now. As I mentioned in my opening, I hear a lot of positive feedback about your office's work and your team's engagement in the community across the District of Columbia. And there've been no shortage of I think, challenges over the years.
I'm sorry.
I said there've been no shortage of challenges over the years
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the work and just really, I think over the course of your tenure, including the pandemic years. I'm just curious of whether you see anything on the horizon. Are there any new challenges that you see ahead that you're looking to tackle if confirmed again to this position, reaffirmed in this position?
Yes, the answer is, of course, yes. I think that the forward-looking is going to be a particularly challenging time for the district and for the country and for the nation. I really believe that how we deal with climate change and environmental justice is going to color a lot of what we do. And because I have been with the office for so long, I've seen the transition. And if you had asked me this question 15 years ago, I would say, well, the most important thing is the cost to consumers and keeping the rates down. And that's still true. And that's why I said that the fundamental issues haven't changed. Mm-hmm. But those are going to be colored or impacted by what we do with climate change and what we do with environmental justice, because they have, health implications, and they also have financial implications. And that, I think, will be the most challenging aspect of what the office will be doing, because it is a delicate balancing act. We have to make certain that these changes are affordable, that we don't, have people out of pocket paying for things that they can't really afford or trying to. So that's going to be, if you ask me what keeps me up at night, that's one of the things that does, because I have to go to all the wards and say, oh, well, I'm keeping your rates down, but you're going to have to pay for, the $1 billion change that's going to be required to move over to an electrified, environment. And if you don't, we're going to continue to bear the consequences of illnesses and asthma and all of the things that we know are happening.
Right.
So
you laid out, I think, what presents some pretty clear challenges that are ahead in your work. But I want to look at some opportunities. And the district has made some progress on the energy transition that's necessitated by climate change, but that transition has also proved to be a bit inconsistent and disruptive. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, what do you see as the successes and potential ongoing opportunities in the implementation of the district's climate policies and how you'll approach this next tenure if reconfirmed?
Well, I think that when we're looking at practices such as solar, that is clearly an opportunity. And I think it is really an example or a model that we can use in terms of, one, changing customer behavior or getting people interested and, involved in adopting solar principles and energy efficiency and renewal. That is really the most difficult, as I mentioned, changing that customer behavior, getting people to adopt these new technologies and mechanisms. So that's where I think there's a lot of opportunity. And, as the SEU and DOE will tell you, as a result of the mayor's Solar for All, at one point, Ward 7 and 8 had the lowest penetration of solar installations. But as a result of community solar, it is now the highest percentage of concentration of solar mechanisms, community solar in the city. That's to me is really remarkable and definitely an example of how we can, a model that we can follow of what we can do right. And I think that was why that was successful, keeping it simple, keeping it affordable, because it's free for so many people that couldn't otherwise afford it. And that is, again, the mindset of, okay, well, why are things not working? Why are people not adopting things that we know are beneficial to them? And if you pinpoint that, then you'll say, oh, well, maybe they can't afford it. Or, maybe it's too complicated and they don't understand.
Standard, yeah.
Or maybe they have a roof that's not going to support it. When you identify those types of things, then you can fix them or correct them or address them. And I think that that approach will work for other areas and other things that we're trying to do. And I definitely think that it's important, as I said, to listen to consumers, to have them involved in the process. If there's ownership, then they're going to buy in and they're going to accept it.
Okay. All right. I don't have any additional questions at this time. Is there anything else that you'd like to offer the committee for consideration of your nomination?
I am prepared to take on the challenge of the future. I think it's going to be exciting. I have been involved in a lot of sea changes in the regulatory process. And I think, the divestiture and unbundling and things of that nature, and even the mergers. But this, I think, is going to be really beyond a game changer, but a shift in the paradigm, so that it's an opportunity to really chart the future. And that is something that I would like to be involved in, because I want to see it done right and done effectively, and that it really results in a tangible benefit for consumers.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. I also want to thank Mr. Brandon for his testimony. We're going to incorporate into the record the testimony that you've attached to of others who support your nomination as well, to make sure that my colleagues have access to that. As a reminder, those interested in submitting written testimony for the record may do so until 5 p.m. on January 12th, 2024. Submissions should be uploaded via the new hearing management system on the council's website at dccouncil.gov. That's website again is dccouncil.gov. There being no further business before the committee, this marks the end of today's public roundtable. The time is now 10:54 a.m. and this hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.